Welcome to another installment of Leadership Landscape TV, where we go inside the minds of local community leaders and allow them a chance to offer some keen insights into how they see themselves and, most importantly, explore just what makes them tick. I'm Kurt Jacobs, host of Leadership Landscape TV, where previous interviews have included leaders from the world of politics, business, religion, sports, law, community activism, and civic engagement. Today, our 165th guest is Terri Foster. She's the Artistic Executive Director of the Louisville Youth Choir, or better known as LYC. Now, for those of you who don't know our guest, allow me to read some of her bio. She has been conducting since 1993. However, in 2007, Terri was named Artistic Executive Director of LYC. She's a former conductor of the Bella Voce Girls Choir and the Louisville Children's Choir, which performed at Carnegie Hall and received national and international performance invitations. She currently directs LYC's chamber and aria choirs, as well as the all-female adult alumni choir. She's a graduate of the University of Louisville School of Music with a Bachelor of Music degree in music education with a vocal emphasis, and has completed master's studies in vocal performance at the University of Louisville. Mrs. Foster's conducting experience includes public and private schools, grades K through 12. She's a former voice teacher at Sacred Heart School for the Arts and maintains a private voice studio. From 1997 to 2003, she was the choral director at Sacred Heart Academy. Under her direction, she received superior ratings at district, state, and national competitions with tours including Toronto, Chicago, Myrtle Beach, Orlando, and New Orleans, to name a few. Under her direction, the Louisville Children's Choir was selected and performed for the 2005 Kentucky Music Educators State Conference, and the Louisville Youth Choir, under her direction, performed with the Moscow Ballet in their U.S. touring production of The Great Russian Nutcracker in 2007. She's an active member of the Kentucky Music Educators Association and the Kentucky American Choral Directors Association, where she served as the Repertoire and Standards Chair for Children's Choirs. Choral Directors Association and Delta Omicron. Her professional vocal career includes performing with the Kentucky Opera, the Stephen Foster Story, community theater groups, and various solo engagements with churches and private events. Terri, it is a true pleasure to have you, and welcome to Leadership Landscape TV. There's a lot of initials and a lot of accomplishments there in your travels as a conductor.
Thank you, Kurt.
Welcome to Leadership Landscape TV. It's quite a pleasure to have you here today. You know, the first question we ask all of our guests is, what drives you or has driven you to this level of excellence within the choral world or as a conductor?
I think for me, it's been the ability to find out at a very young age that music was something I had a natural aptitude for, and then to be surrounded by people who encouraged that growth in me and gave me experiences, which is why I think LYC is such a great fit for me, because it lets me engage with young people in the same way that so many people engaged with me when they discovered my talent.
At what age did you feel you had a passion for this? Was it something in your youth, or how did that come about?
The very first memory I have really of someone saying, "Wow, you have a really nice voice." I was about 7 years old, actually.
Oh, wow.
I went to a small Catholic school in rural Kentucky, and we had been to Mass, as we did lots of days going to a Catholic school. And I remember the teacher came over while we were just quietly working on an art project at our desk and said, "Could you sing that song we sang at church today?" And just sort of singled me out to sort of provide background music in the classroom. And
That's great.
Miss Priest was my second grade teacher, and she's still there in Brett County. And after that, it just sort of evolved into school plays and then taking piano lessons and those kinds of things. So.
Whom do you credit most influential in your life? It can be personal, professional. It can be more than one person.
Probably personally, it would have to be my parents and my family. They really drove in me and instilled in me character, and as well as not being afraid to try things and to capitalize in the world of performance on different opportunities that I had. Professionally, I've had lots of mentors, lots of conductors that I've looked up to over the time. Frank Heller is another local conductor who I had the opportunity to work with at the University of Louisville, and he's meant a lot to me, just to be able to be under his baton and coming up in the local choral world. And then from a nonprofit leadership stance, I would have to say Barbara Sexton Smith.
She was one of our
very
first guests.
inspiring and really did a lot for me to feel like a woman really can take the helm of a nonprofit and in the arts world of a nonprofit. So
that's great. That's awesome. What was the most defining moment of your life, Terri? Again, it could be more than one, personal or professional.
I think probably the most defining moment for me would be actually a culmination of lots of small moments in the world of music growing up. Being in an environment where the performing arts were cultivated at a very young age, having someone sort of see that talent in me and then have parents to support the growth of that talent, and then be given the opportunity by choral directors to participate in musicals as a child and to be in the Kentucky All-State choirs, and even to branch out as a junior in high school and start teaching some private piano lessons on my own, to sort of see if music education was really what I wanted to do. I toyed between becoming a pediatrician, so I knew kids were sort of a focus for me, or being a music teacher, and taking on those students just as a junior in high school let me see really music education was where it was at for me.
This is kind of a curveball question. Do you prefer being the teacher or the performer, or are they different?
They can be different. I think for me, I have found a way. Early on, performance was very intriguing for me. I sang with the Kentucky Opera Chorus for 10 seasons and did a couple of summers in the Stephen Foster Story, and that was a great opportunity. But the more I grew in my teaching opportunities, the more I realized a lot of teachers really are performers, and they may not realize that, but you have lots of young, impressionable minds that are watching what you do, and so making sure that what you're sharing with them is being done in an engaging way, it almost is an extension of the performing world.
What is your biggest professional triumph? And again, it could be more than one, and it could be personal as well.
Well, I would like to think maybe it's still out there somewhere.
That's great.
You know,
That's a good
I mean,
answer.
I've had the opportunity to bring choirs to lots of performances that maybe they wouldn't have had if we hadn't been able to work together on the ventures that we've had. Carnegie Hall, we performed at the Grand Ole Opry, which, you know, another one of those dream stages, you know, that you hope to get to be a part of. And, you know, I would love to do a European tour sometime. LYC has done that before, but not with me as a director. So I think that maybe is out there in the future for us.
Something to look forward to,
Absolutely.
wish for, work towards. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's great. And what is the best piece of advice ever given to you, Terri? Again, it could be more than one, personal or professional.
I think probably the best piece of advice has been to trust myself and to lean on my instinct and my faith to really guide what I do, decisions that I make. So just, you know, building up a person and growing a person that isn't afraid to really rely on themselves.
Now, I know myself, like others, you know, I played an instrument in middle school and then, for lack of a better word, outgrew it and never went back to it. And of course, you're doing more of the vocal, obviously. How do you feel when you see that? You see someone with a lot of potential that, for whatever reason, either pulls away from it or goes in a different direction, or the other way, embraces it. I was just curious your thoughts as a mentor and teacher and a performer. What do you do in a situation like that, both of those?
That's a really popular question, actually, Kurt, from people that call wanting advice about a young singer or a young musician. And leading the Louisville Youth Choir, we are called upon just to be a resource in the community for young people coming up in the arts. And usually what I encourage parents to do with a child that they think might have talent is to allow them to experience it, whether it's dance, whether it's music, whether it's drama, visual art, whatever it is. Seek out opportunities for them to have that experience. We have found that taking that type of leadership role and encouragement role with these parents and their young artists, even if they try the Louisville Youth Choir, for instance, at a very young age, and they decide maybe down the road they want to try sports, that maybe music wasn't for them, a lot of times just by letting them have those experiences, if music is really what they're supposed to be doing, it'll come back around. And we've had those students, you know, that start very young and then they see their friends doing other things and they think they want to branch out and try those things. And if music is meant to be for that child, it will find the way back into their lives.
Now, this show is called Leadership Landscape TV, so I'll ask this question the way I ask all our guests, and then I'm going to tweak it a little. Can you define leadership in one word in the Great English Lexicon? And I'll say, can you define music in one word in the Great English Lexicon?
I would think leadership, for me, is example. I really think
I don't think we've had that word.
I
It's
really
great.
think example can contain so many elements of the word leadership. And maybe that's because I deal with young people. I think that the young mind is very impressionable. And if young people can be surrounded by adults who are supportive and adults who are trying to challenge their minds and have them to model so much of what kids do is just naturally they mimic, and they're
Right.
driven towards the example of someone else. So if you can be an example to them, I think that's really a great form of
That's
leadership.
great. Now, if someone were to ask you, what is the single most positive thing you've contributed in your life or to humanity, what would that be? It's one of those big mouthful,
That is a big question.
huge questions that is often hard for some of our guests.
You know, I almost have to look at that question as an opportunity to share a way that I've really been blessed through having music in my life. It's obviously you get the instant gratification of applause when you're involved in the performing arts, but for me, it's not so much the applause; it's the after effects that are felt because of music. I went to a luncheon recently, and a gentleman gave me a huge embrace and said, "You meant so much to my daughter, who now has 3 kids of her own.
That's great.
When you were her choir teacher, and just the example that you were for her of what a young woman can be." And so having parents come back after the fact and say, "My child really benefited not just from the music and the applause, but from the person that they've grown into." I think that's
Now, the question I
it.
just asked was more internal, introspective. This next one's more external. If you could change one thing in life or in general, what would that be? If you could, well, you have a wand. We'll get to it. But if you could, if you
it was
could,
a magic
it's a
wand,
and
is
you could do anything you wanted in the world, what would you do it, and what would you do and why, maybe?
You know, I think I've been very fortunate in growing up and having lots of positive influences for me
great.
personally. You know, something that you're only going to get through age and time is wisdom. You're going to
Right.
gain that.
This is
So I
true.
think just learning so much about how to be comfortable in your own skin and not sweating the small stuff. If that could come to people at a younger age,
Right.
but then I think all of life is a give and take. If
Sure.
you're given that too soon, what does that mean maybe that you missed out on? So just that wisdom and seeking that wisdom, if you could have it earlier.
More wisdom younger. Now, this next one's the mouthful question. You had mentioned example in terms of leadership in the earlier question for one word for leadership. Could you describe in detail a particular scenario or incident where you utilized your own philosophy on leadership?
You know, I would like to think that it's not just one particular time for me. Every time I engage with the young people at LYC, I hope that I am being that example. I hope that they are seeing poise and grace under pressure, because a lot of times in music, you know, it's you go into a performance situation where you think it's going to be one thing and then it's suddenly something else, and you have to have that flexibility. And so I think just every time that I take the podium in front of our singers, that they really are getting a chance to see by my example what leadership is.
Now, I love this next question. If someone asked you, not them, what does Terri Foster stand for, what would you tell them? How do you see yourself, perceive yourself?
I think positivity. I really
I can
am.
see that.
I really think I am optimistic. I like to be able to take whatever the scenario is and spin it to the positive, and make lemonade. You know, not to get too cliche, but I think there is. And I probably get this trait from my grandmother. She's always been the queen of the silver lining in our family. So really just being able to be positive.
That's great. Now, this next question is, do you think there's a difference in our leaders or musicians today than in past generations? In terms of, there's a lot of ways to look at that. You could look at it from those coming up, you know, millennials, the newer generation. Can they succeed in music maybe the way they once could or couldn't now? Kind of give me the state of the music industry vocally, I guess, in the 21st century.
I think
is what the question.
I think it's pretty much which is very interesting, even with the changing of the times, it's been a pretty consistent
That's great.
theme, a pretty consistent element. The passion of the music maker or the passion of the singer absolutely has to be there. It has to be something that they're not willing to give on. They're going to follow it through to its end. And then not having ridiculous expectations, if you
Right.
will, for what that end can be, because so much in the music,
Unrealistic, maybe?
yes,
Yeah.
exactly, because so much in the music industry depends on timing and who you know, and those have always been two really big factors.
Yeah.
So I think just being passionate about what they do and being able to find joy in it, regardless of the payout, the monetary payout.
Right. Now, you've got an object in your hand.
Yes.
That I'm sure the audience has been going, what is that? I think I know what it is.
It's not a magic wand.
Right, right. Can you define what it is in the world of conducting, what it's called, and then explain why you brought it?
Sure. This is a baton, a conductor's baton.
Okay.
They come in all different lengths, all different shapes, sizes.
Some of them use two, right?
Well,
Just
conducting
saying.
teachers might go crazy
Yeah,
if they
yeah,
saw
yeah.
you trying to use two. I tend to only use the baton, actually, if I'm conducting a really large ensemble, especially where instruments are going to be involved. But for me, when we talked earlier about maybe bringing something that symbolizes leadership,
Right.
being a conductor, this was sort of that very first thing that popped in my mind, was
great.
to bring a
It's-
baton. And this is actually the very first baton that I ever
Oh, wow.
purchased. Got it when I was a student at U of L School of Music.
That's great.
And it's something that to me really is, I think when people think of conductor, that's the image that comes to mind. It
Sure.
maybe even is from a Bugs Bunny cartoon, or the tuxedo
Right,
and,
right.
and the crazy motions that come with it. But it really is a symbol of leadership. I tell the families when they come up and congratulate me after a performance of our singers, I said, no, really, the congratulations belongs to the performer. I'm just really a human metronome up there, and so
Yeah, that's a good way to
this
look
is
at
a
it.
tool that really just helps
Yeah.
me do that. So
That's great. That's
yeah.
great. Now, we've got some pictures we're going to go through in a minute, but I want to get this question in there just to see what your take is on it. So, you're the executive director, of the organization, the Louisville Youth Choir. But if the board or the powers that be came to you and said, you know what, Terri, you've done such a great job, take 2 weeks, get lost, no cell phone, no technology, kind of disappear from humanity, 2 full weeks, 14 days, 10 business days. What do you do? Where do you go? Who do you take with you?
This is like a bucket list question.
Yeah, I
Kurt.
know. That's why I offer.
I wish this
great.
was a magic wand. I
Right,
I
right.
would zap myself right there. Probably one of the dream locations
Mm-hmm.
for me would be to hop on a plane with my husband and my son.
That's great.
And travel to Italy.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother was first generation, born here in the States.
Oh, wow.
From a small village, Sesta Calinda,
Okay.
in northeastern Italy, up around Lake Como, Lake Maggiore, that
Okay.
region. And my father has been there
Mm-hmm.
and visited family that we still have there, and I would love to go.
Yeah.
I think my Italian grandmother, had a natural knack for
Mm-hmm.
music, and unfortunately, I never met her. She passed away when my dad was still very young. He was 4 years old.
Oh, wow.
And so just getting to see that area, I think, would
So you've
shed
never
some more
been there,
light.
correct?
I've never been
Okay.
to Italy, but I
That would
would
be
particularly
cool.
like to go to that area.
Take note. Whoever's listening, they can make
That's
that
right.
happen.
That's right.
Make
We could
that
take
happen.
a tour
Exactly.
to Italy. See,
There you
I'd like to go to Europe.
There you
so.
go. That's a European tour. Of the
That's
Louisville Youth Choir.
right. That's right.
All right. Well, we've got several pictures here, and you can put the
Sure.
baton down if you like. And just kind of hold them up
Okay.
and talk about what each one is. And then we'll overlay the screen for the audience. So
This is a picture of me actually in conducting mode. A lot of times you will see, especially vocal conductors, sort of helping the choir along with their facial expressions. So
Yes, I
I'm
can see that.
obviously in that photo wanting a nice tall vowel from my singers.
I love it.
So that's what that is. This is a photo from the very first season that I sang in the Stephen Foster story.
Okay.
So you can see Mo Kentucky Home in the background
That's great.
of that shot. A great way to spend the summer.
Oh, yeah. I
If
can
If
imagine.
you're a
A
young
lot of fun.
performer coming up. This is a picture of my siblings, my brother and my sister. We are very close at heart,
Mm-hmm.
even though distance separates us. My sister is an Army wife and lives in Colorado.
Oh, wow.
My brother is a pilot for Delta.
Well, there you go.
And so getting to spend time with them is
Frequent
something
flyer
that
miles,
I
I
really
bet.
enjoy. That's right. That's right.
Just saying.
A picture of my husband and I.
Oh, great picture.
Yeah, we were attending another arts group's fundraiser in this photo, and so we like to support the
good.
arts. This is a large shot of the choir. at one of our holiday concerts.
Here, I can hold some of these.
So, oh, you're good. You're good. Thank you. And then another picture of a smaller ensemble that
get
got the
around.
opportunity to sing at
Nice.
Churchill Downs. We
That's
do
great.
get around. This is the choir holding
I
up
love
their
this one.
C's. Those C's, somebody said, why the C? Is that for choir? And I said, well, actually, this photo was taken when we performed for Prince Charles and Duchess Camilla. So this was right before we performed, and we had our C's up for Charles.
Did you ever think in the wildest dreams that they'd come to Louisville and you perform? I mean, what are the odds, right?
It was just...
And then you got picked to do it. That's
It was
great.
an amazing whirlwind invitation. Andrew Kipe from the orchestra contacted us and said, this is happening.
Hey, I hope you're
and,
free today.
and yes, do you think
Whatever, right.
do you think you could fit this in?
Yeah.
And absolutely, we took full advantage of
That's
it. We
great.
actually had the state song set in a new way
That's
by a composer friend of ours,
And you've got all that on
Jonathan
video, I
Crutchfield.
hope.
But well,
Good.
that's the tricky part. When you perform for the Royals, there are only so
Oh.
many cameras and pictures that
I
are
see.
allowed.
I
So,
gotcha. I gotcha.
but we do share it with our audiences when we can.
That's good.
So, and then just another photo of the group, me conducting at the Brown Theater for the Fun
Wow.
for the Arts kickoff.
Oh, yes. That's a big deal every year.
Friends, of course, are very key and very important in my life. The gentleman pictured there in the center is literally been a childhood friend since birth.
That's great.
So
He gets props. You don't even know.
yeah, he gets props
More
too.
friends.
Some more
Looks like
friends.
girls' night out
so that is a girls'
Uh-huh.
weekend.
Those
so
are the good pictures
get to
right
take
there.
advantage of that. Now these are the Royals. We actually do
There we
have a
go.
shot in here that someone managed
Yeah, right in here.
to sneak in a camera and get a picture with the Prince and the Duchess and the singers.
That's great. Thanks for sending those over.
Yeah, it was a great opportunity.
There's
Something
Mayor
that
Fisher.
they will remember forever. Absolutely.
Now, was
Mayor
this
Fisher.
gentleman with the Royals to the left of the mayor? Or who
I'm
is
not
that?
sure if he was part of the royal delegation. We really did not have the opportunity to meet
Gotcha.
the people
Well,
in the
probably pretty
delegation.
hectic.
Yes, this is some backstage shots at the Grand Ole Opry when some of the singers perform
Nice.
there. And then Kentucky Opera Days.
Nice. Now, where are you?
I'm down here in the front in the
Aha.
green dress.
All righty.
Performing for the mass ball there.
Nice. And then I love this one.
Yeah, this is just a professional headshot
Wait till you see the next
of
one,
me
folks.
conducting. Oh, goodness.
I love this one.
Yes.
It's like that TV show To Tell the Truth.
There
know,
you go.
with
This
the
is
real
this is your
Teresa
life. This,
stand
that's
upright.
right. That's right.
I love that one.
Former Miss Louisville.
There you go.
So I
That
would
is great.
I would say that the experience of earning my scholarship money through the Miss Kentucky Scholarship Program absolutely paid for school. It was a great way to go.
That's great.
And
And there you are with one of our former guests.
that's right. One of my mentors, Barbara Sexton
Oh,
Smith.
yes. Got to get her in there.
Absolutely. Another opera shot.
That's great. Now, what is that of? That opera?
I don't remember this one. I believe maybe it was Tosca.
Okay.
Especially because we have all of the,
fleur-de-lis
yeah,
folk.
yes, and they're
Very
dressed
nice.
as priests, and there's a big scene that's a holy procession in that opera. So I think that's what
yes.
that was from. And then this is a photo of my family, my husband.
Last but not least.
That's right, my husband, me, and my son.
That's
so
great. Well, I appreciate
Yeah.
you sharing those.
Thanks for giving
That's
me the opportunity
so
to
nice. Now, this is
bring
a
those
fairly
in.
new question that we bring
Okay.
into the interview. If you could have dinner alone with one human being, living or dead, who would it be and why?
Oh, goodness. I would probably say my mother. She and I were very close, and she was one of my dearest friends, and she passed away in 2013.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And, you know, you always miss those that you love and are near and dear to you.
Sure.
And she was very wise and very encouraging. And so if I could have a little bit of time with one more person, it would probably be her.
That's great. I can only imagine if I was a fly on the wall what you all would talk about. Now, this next question, and you've seen it on some of the other television programs. If you could write a note to yourself, the younger Terri, what might you have put in that note to yourself, knowing what you know now, the older, more wise Terri?
It would probably just be keep the faith.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that would embody a lot of different aspects of life. From a spiritual standpoint, to keep the faith, to hold strong. I think that's what gets you through those times of losing a parent or someone close to you, and but also keeping the faith for music.
Okay.
And making a career in music, because it's not necessarily a field where you're guaranteed a paycheck.
Right.
So I feel very
That's for
blessed
sure.
and very fortunate that I'm able really to be paid to do my hobby, and just keep the faith in people. I think a lot of times, especially when young people are involved, we hear
Yeah.
what they're doing wrong out in the community.
Right.
And there's just so much positivity that young people have. And so keep the faith.
This is a question I want to kind of circle back on, and maybe I'm going to articulate it a little more succinctly. When you see a student, an up-and-coming, musical prodigy, the extreme, or sadly you see the other where, for whatever reason, their passion may be misguided. In other words, the talent doesn't meet the passion. How do you deal with those two extremes? And I'm sure in your travels you've seen both.
I have.
How do you deal with that? I mean, that's got to be a real challenge, I would think. In other words, the one who has the ability to really go places, but for whatever reason is choosing not to, or is in a position where they can't. And then the other one where you have to basically, I don't know, break their heart, but you've got to be honest with them.
I think in both instances, honesty is very important.
Okay.
You hit the nail on the head by saying honest. You have to be honest with them. There are lots of opportunities for young people to be involved in the arts, even if they're not going to be the next famous person, fill in the blank, whoever it might be. And at LYC, the majority of the singers that come our way are not ever going to be famous. That's not the case. But I think what they're going to learn by being involved with music, even if they maybe don't have that tip-top talent, is group dynamics, teamwork, self-discipline, self-respect. I mean, I think those are all qualities that come from participating in music. So I would never discourage a child from seeking out the musical opportunities, but if the talent really isn't there to match the passion, I think it's better to tell somebody that early on than to lead them down that path. Now, the flip side of that, if you have someone that's really, really talented, but that's just not the direction they go, I think for my voice teacher at U of L, that was sort of his dream, is that I would put the music education in the back pocket, but that I would go and be a performer. And that just wasn't really where it was at for me.
But
so
you're, again, honest with yourself.
I was honest with myself,
scenario.
so I think that helps me to be more accepting when I see that student, that's very, very talented and absolutely I feel like can make a career, but they feel drawn to another career path.
I appreciate you being so forthright on that question, because I think a lot of the audience members want and need to hear that potentially.
Absolutely.
Now, this question we ask all of our guests. No one gets out of the seat without being asked it, older or younger. When the great day comes, Terri, God forbid today was the last one, how do you want to be remembered? How do you want to be remembered?
I think I want to be remembered as a faith-filled woman. Someone who had faith in her family, had faith in God, had faith in the work that she did. I don't mean faith-filled from just necessarily a spiritual standpoint. I think sometimes when people use the word faith, that's the only thing that people think of. And for me, just being a faith-filled woman, just having faith in humanity and all that my life has touched.
That's great. You've touched a lot of lives, younger and older, all the people that have come to watch your performances. It's really been a pleasure and an honor to have you on Leadership
Thanks,
Landscape
Kurt.
TV.
It's
Thanks
been great.
so much for being on.
It's been great to be here. I appreciate
I'm
your
going to
time.
have to do this for you, and that's all she wrote.
There you go.
See you later, folks. This was good. Thank you for being on here.
Thanks.
I like you doing the